Hi everyone, welcome to another quick class from Seating Dynamics. My name is Michelle Lang. I'm an occupational therapist in the Denver, Colorado area. Today we're going to talk about durability in dynamic seating. So let's say we're working with a client. They're already breaking their equipment, perhaps the seating system, the mounting hardware, the wheelchair frame, and now we've added dynamic seating. Usually this is done to absorb those forces and protect the equipment from breakage, along with other clinical indicators. Well, that means we need to use a dynamic component that's durable enough to sustain the forces that the wheelchair was unable to sustain, all while allowing it to move. That's a tall order. So how do we accomplish this? Well, there's three main strategies. The travel of the dynamic component, the amount of resistance, and the design of the component itself. So let's talk about travel, and no, I don't mean a vacation. The dynamic component moves. It moves as the client forces compress and then release the dynamic component. So the component responds to those forces, absorbs, stores that energy, and helps the client return to upright. Well, if the component goes through its full travel ability to maximum end range, the forces that would typically be absorbed by the dynamic component are now translated to the frame, and that can actually result in breakage. If the resistance of the dynamic component is so strong, if it's too high for an individual, the dynamic component will not move at all. And as a result, the component will not absorb forces. Instead, those forces again may be translated to the frame, resulting in breakage. If the component's at mid-travel, then it's going to work perfectly. It's going to absorb the forces, preventing them from being translated to the frame, and that can be accomplished through elastomers, springs, or hydraulics. Well, this can be a little bit confusing here, so let's take a closer look. On the left here, we have a static wheelchair. In the middle, we have what occurs when those forces are not relieved. Sometimes we actually have breakage. And on the right, we have a dynamic back that is moving in response to the forces to prevent that breakage. If the resistance is too high, then we can see that the dynamic component will not be activated. There may not be any movement of the component because in this case the elastomer is just too firm for an individual. The forces can be translated to the frame, again resulting in breakage. If the resistance is too low, the component may go through full travel, fully compressing that elastomer. And as a result, instead of absorbing further forces, those forces are again translated to the frame, resulting in breakage. So it's important to choose the right amount of resistance so that the dynamic component does not travel too far, but does travel some, absorbing those forces. And then finally, we have the design of the component itself. It's important that the materials are made of a durable material. It's important that there's not too many parts and pieces to this component. The more pieces there are to a component, like the example on the left, the more bolts and screws will be required to hold it all together. Those are all potential points of movement, and wherever there's movement between a bolt and a hole or between different pieces of the dynamic component, there's wear and tear, and that impacts durability. So we want as few parts and pieces as possible. Bottom line, when we're recommending a dynamic seating component, it's important to keep in mind the durability of the component itself. When we're choosing resistance, we want to make sure it's not too high or too low, because either scenario could result in some breakage to the frame, as forces will be translated through the dynamic component to the frame itself. Proper recommendation and configuration can literally make or break our outcome for the client. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me directly or to Seating Dynamics. We'd be very happy to help you. Thank you very much for joining us for this class. I hope it was helpful.